Good evening. Welcome to 20, Entertainment Weekly's Scariest Movies. I'm Bruce Campbell, and for the next hour, we're going on a trip through 20 of the most frightening films ever made. Now, let's get busy.
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Oh. Hi, how you doing? Tonight we're here to celebrate the 20 scariest movies of all time. Filmed full of blood, guts, and ghouls, Satans, psychos, and sickos. A few things I know a little bit about. Oh, look. There I am now.
Who the hell are you?
I'm the guy with the gun.
This is my boomstick! Why are you torturing me like this? Why?
You might want to keep that closed. You know, Evil Dead's on the list, so that's one for me. But John Carpenter's got two that made the cut. Halloween and The Thing. But who's counting? Oh, right. Entertainment Weekly.
The 20 movies aren't ranked. These are just 20 movies that we find to be the scariest movies in the genre. Evil Dead is the classic scary movie premise. You get 5 kids in a cabin in the woods. They get turned into zombies. It's just terrifying. The Exorcist. Satan in the body of a 12-year-old girl. An American Werewolf in London, David Naughton turns into a werewolf. That's pretty scary. With Carrie, there are 3 things you have to know. Pig's blood at the prom, telekinesis, and the scariest final shot of any scary movie ever. Psycho, the conversation begins and ends with the shower scene. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Creepy, wrong, and looks like a snuff film. The thing that's scary about Jaws, it's knowing that the shark is gonna strike at any minute. Lost Highway is scary, David Lynch scary. The Hitcher, all you have to do is watch the scene with C. Thomas Howell eating French fries. Rosemary's Baby is every mother's worst nightmare, that your kid is Satan. You're carrying the spawn of Satan. A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger tormenting kids in their sleep. The Omen, the spawn of Satan in the body of a young boy. Even the opening credits of Seven are scary somehow. Everything about that movie is just creepy and tickles you in the wrong place. The Shining, Jack Nicholson goes crazy. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Leatherface wearing a mask of human flesh. Poltergeist, who knew that static on a TV could be so scary? The Silence of the Lambs, serial killer Americans hate to love. Night of the Living Dead, the original prototypical zombie film. The Thing, terrifying. Halloween, the original slasher flick.
Carpenter's a man who can scare without cheap tricks or tomfoolery. Tomfoolery like this. Instead, he gave us real fear. Remember Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween? Scary.
You know, it's hard to do a scary film. Horror and scary movies are a lot like comedy. It's all timing.
Were there any particular movies or scenes that gave little Johnny nightmares growing up? Anything you can recall?
The original Thing from Another World scared me. The Fly scared me.
Let's talk about Halloween. Now, from what I understand, the budget was minuscule.
I got a call from a distributor who said, well, I want to make a movie. I've got $300,000. I want to make a movie about babysitter murderers. Because he figured every girl in America, everybody is babysat. So what someone's killer is stalking them.
Now you have a Jamie Lee. Obviously, she's got a famous pedigree.
She just had a whole lot of talent, and she was really gung-ho to do it. She wanted to do a movie, and she could really scream.
Honestly, what does this guy Myers have against Halloween? I mean, what is it?
Michael Myers is just a stand-in for all evil. He's a cipher. He's not a real thing, a person. They've made him a real person in the sequels, but he's not. He's just a stand-in. That's what makes him so scary.
All right, now I want to talk about The Thing.
The Thing was received negatively in terms of the reviews and a lot of the audience because it was so in your face. The monster was just, there it was, right in the light. There's an old cliche in Hollywood, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to keep him hidden in the shadows. Well, I just put it out in the open.
Which of these scenes from these two classic horror films, are there any particular ones that you can put your finger on that you're proudest of?
Well, like we were talking about in The Thing, I think the blood test scene is my favorite.
I thought you'd feel that way, Gary. You were the only one that could have got to that blood. We'll do you last.
In Halloween, there are several moments that I'm really proud of, especially because we didn't have any money. When Jamie Lee comes out of her room, she's just seen her dead friends, and she goes into a corner. And she's sort of cowering and sniveling. And you become aware very slowly that Michael Myers, the shape, is standing right behind her. Well, Dean Cundey put a light really high above him on a dimmer. And then just brought it up really slowly, but you have to bring it up just as it's being exposed to the film. The audience is seeing it. I'm happy with that. The scarier, the better. Everybody loves to be in the dark together and scream and have a good time.
The undead. Why are they so scary? Sure, they're lacking in moral fiber, or any fiber at all for that matter. But has anyone ever really taken the time to get to know them? Of course not. You ever seen one up close? Look. Smells like someone's looking to tango. Sorry, ladies. My dance card is full. My good friend, Mr. Boomstick here, is ready to disco. Ah! Ah! Whoa! 3 shots. That's some boomstick. Oh, there's more. Oh, how many we got? Whoa-hey!
The Living Dead.
I can't take this. Has it occurred to you that it might be unsettling to see you rise from the grave to visit me?
And I understand I am to walk the earth in limbo, one of the living dead. Harry and I and everyone you murder are not dead. The undead.
Hit her! Hit her!
Scared sick yet? Maybe this will do the trick.
EW's Pie Chart, featuring the scariest places in a scary movie. The bathroom. It might be your sanctuary from the everyday, but it's also evil's favorite room in the house. Murderous mayhem in the commode slashes off 50% of our pie. The kitchen. Still hungry for terror? 30% of scary movie fun gets cooked up there. And the roads aren't exactly safe either. 16% of horror happens on the highway.
Hi, kid.
Or at least to people who tailgate.
Don't you tailgate!
Tell him you won't tailgate.
Looking for refuge underwater? Think again. Does this guy look safe to you? Jaws alone eats up 3% of our pie. And it may only be 1% of our pie, but the scariest place in a scary movie has got to be anywhere near this guy. I know I'd stay away from him.
But I can't. I did, however, just lose my appetite for pie. We'll be back with the scariest serial killer ever, or at least the actor who played him.
And later, the worst deaths ever put on film. And a zombie we can all love, director/musician Rob Zombie.
You can't hear the Psycho score without picturing, you know, a hand pumping a knife in a shower.
But first, can you answer this question? Which movie was actually John Travolta's major film debut? Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Carrie, The Thing, or Jaws? The answer when we return to 20, Entertainment Weekly's Scariest Movies, right here on AMC. Which movie was actually John Travolta's major film debut? The answer is Carrie.
Don't be in such a hurry. I'm hurrying away from you, you know that?
No, you're not.
Pain right in the ass.
You don't mean it.
I don't mean it.
Hey! Come here.
Ooh, yeah.
Although Travolta only had a small role in Carrie, it got him noticed by other directors and helped him become the superstar he is today. Maybe it was his sense of style that did it. Yeah. Oh, hi! Oh, that smarts.
Killer Couture started when Norman Bates decided he wanted to feel, pretty. But where Norman Bates failed in the pretty department, Carrie picked up the slack, stunning the senior class to death. And for our creepier killers, masks will always be in style. Whatever the occasion, they're good for an extra scare. Caught in the buff.
Thank you.
Balloons always look great.
A naked American man stole my balloon.
Unless you can find a woman's coat. But if you're Buffalo Bill, it's not a woman's coat you're in the market for. It's a coat made of woman that's more your style.
Buffalo Bill, Leatherface, and Norman Bates are three of the scariest lunatics ever put on film. And all inspired by one real psychopath, Ed Gein. When the police finally caught up with him, they found the remains of 15 bodies littered around his farm. Needless to say, he spent the rest of his life in a mental institution. See, the thing about psychos, you can lock up their bodies, but not their minds or their appetites. Good boy. Guess he's not hungry.
Psychos. We all go a little mad sometimes.
I took a souvenir. Her pretty head.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
You want to know what happens to an eyeball when it gets punctured?
Open your eyes, Willie. Look at the world. It's either you or them.
Nobody knows what makes these people tick. Nobody has ever really gotten into the head of some psycho serial killer. We don't know who they are. They look like you or I. They're just normal, everyday people. They're not some guy with some scar down the front of his face looking like some tough killer guy. You know, they're just normal, everyday looking people. And that, it's very frightening.
Did you really kill your mama?
I guess I did.
How'd it happen?
I stabbed her.
What is it about this movie that has such staying power? Why does this movie, after generation after generation of viewers, just want to go to this movie and get the hell scared out of them?
I think it's more of an internal fear. It's a fear that you don't see. You know, it's not like this horror scream or something like that. You get scared on the inside, and you don't want anyone to see that you're scared, because it's not one of those you know, out of the closet monster kind of fears.
Well, that's what makes it so terrifying to me, is that this is a real guy.
Reality is a daunting thing, isn't it? It can be very scary and frightening.
How did you get into his head? I mean, what can you tell us about what was going through this guy's head?
I personally didn't really care to get inside this guy's head as an actor. As an individual person, as far as I'm concerned, he should have been put to death a long time ago. His mannerisms were very subtle, very old style. He seemed like a perfect gentleman, sort of smooth and quiet. He is somewhat monotone, but there was something in his voice that told you had better stop what you're doing right now.
Don't do that, Otis. She's your sister.
Okay, I was only kidding around, Henry.
Tell her you're sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Now, tell her you won't do it again.
I won't. I swear, Becky, I swear I won't.
When the film first screened, it wasn't received entirely positively, was it?
A lot of people had some pretty strong opinions about it. First night out, we probably lost about 50–60% of the audience. It's just that they just had enough.
Yeah.
And some people reacted by staying, and some people reacted by just going, I can't take it anymore, I'm out of here. That movie, no matter how many times you see it, it draws you in. It's kind of one of those things that kicks you right in the gut. That's how I felt when I first saw it.
What do you do? I won't see it again.
People see scary movies over and over and over again, so they're not scared when they see them again. It's a challenge. I go to a movie and I get scared from the movie. I'm like, I can't believe I got scared from this movie. I'm going back.
I'd still like to kill him, though.
I bet you would.
I'd like to kill somebody.
Say that again.
I'd like to kill somebody.
Must mean you go for a ride, Otis.
There's a randomness to the way he picks the people that he kills. I mean, there are scenes in this movie where he's almost going eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or, you know, at potential victims.
Yeah.
Is that part of the horror of this character, that it could just, you know, there for the grace of God kind of randomness?
The randomness of, like, choosing eeny, meeny, miny, mo, which one should I take? That's very scary. He would convince them in some way to get in his car.
Hey, are you going to the city?
Sure, hop in.
Of course, by the time they got into the vehicle, it was already too late. Unfortunately so, there are still people out there in this world of ours that do that. And they get the person. The person has no idea it's coming. And we send out hundreds of people looking for them in the forest.
You know, listening to Rooker reminds me of all those poor souls who met their makers on our list, left in the wake of our killing machines as they reaped their harvest of death. They died with dignity and grace, but did we even know their names? Well, like you poor bastard. Were you once the king of this castle? Ah, crap. There's a mess.
When we come back, we'll get the buzz from Texas Chainsaw Master Tobe Hooper. Feeling anemic? We've got more blood than the Red Cross.
Oh, God, blood!
And later, the man who took on Damian.
Just one-handed me, he hit me in the nuts.
And lived to talk about it.
I'll tell you something, that set changed my life.
Director of The Omen, Richard Donner. But first, Head Cheese was the original title of which movie? Was it Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Evil Dead, or Poltergeist? The answer when we return to 20, Entertainment Weekly's Scariest Movies, right here on AMC. Head Cheese was the original title of which movie? The answer is Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Well, I think we just picked up Dracula.
You can have dinner with us. You like head cheese? My brother makes it real good. You like it.
In Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he showed us that chainsaws weren't just for waking up the annoying neighbors in the middle of the night anymore. But wouldn't doing that make you the annoying neighbor? Huh. But I digress.
This is the movie that is just as real, just as close, just as terrifying as being there. Even if one of them survives, what will be left? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. After you stop screaming, you'll start talking about it.
And what came to me was, I mean, not only just Leatherface, the chainsaw and all of that, but the configuration of the story, where the story keeps falling back in on itself. I mean, every time the girl escapes, she goes straight back into danger.
In Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you were going for a PG rating originally, weren't you? I mean,
I called the MPAA and I said, how do I get a PG rating? I said, well, like if I hang a girl on a meat hook, how do I get a PG rating? And they said, it's going to be very tough. And I said, well, look, what if I don't show penetration, I don't show blood, but I show the action of it? And I said, well, that's a good start. So the meat hook scene, for example, I started by putting a girl in a costume that didn't have a back. So once you got to that scene and you're looking over the meat hook and you see her bare back coming, you know, towards you, and then it cuts to a reverse, and now she has a parachute harness on, and Leatherface just jams her down on it in the hook. You see in the background little splatters of dried blood on the wall. It was like almost little streaks of black. And the camera tilts down her body to this wash tub, and you know what it's for. But there is no blood coming from it. And the mind kind of filled in the gaps.
Did you know exactly what you were doing when you were doing it, or were you so young and so green that this was just natural instinct that was leading you to create a horror classic?
A bit of both. Perhaps some of it was, well, I know for a fact, some of the spirit, the emotional storm that was going on around the production, and the heat, and all of that got onto the film. You know, I was doing something that hopefully would be perceived as a genuine nightmare.
Hey, let me out of here!
Hey, how about tossing in that sandwich, huh? There's a few things you must know to survive in a scary movie. Like how to get out of a straitjacket.
The must list. You must always avoid the cemetery.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Otherwise, it could be your funeral. And of course, you must never hide in the closet. It's the first place all experienced killers look.
Hello?
And don't forget, you must always knock.
Hello?
Look, just because the door is open doesn't mean you'll be welcome.
Can I help you with that?
Also, you must never talk to strangers. You see, they're called strangers for a reason.
Are you about a size 14?
And finally, you must never pick up hitchhikers.
My mother told me never to do this. That's what the other guy said.
Why is that? Because I cut off his legs and his head. And I'm gonna do the same to you.
Because Mom is always right.
Ah, it worked. No problem. Little flexibility, imagination, a knife. Now I'm a free man. Oh, a little blood. Nothing to freak out about. But a lot of blood? That's another story.
Blood.
Hello.
Hello.
Before we shot this, I was talking to Griffin saying, you know, this is foam rubber. It's kind of delicate. I know you got to fight it and stuff, but be aware that, you know, you're going to do more damage to the head than it's going to do to you. You know, so anyways, first take, I'm ready to do it, and John says action, and I start to go, and the first thing Griffin does is like grab the side of the face, and he pulls the skin right off the skull, and it's like just rips the foam, and the skin's over here, and the skull's over here. So John says cut. So I had to glue the foam back together, get it back on there. So it's like, okay, is that the way you want to play, Griffin? No, you know. So I just beat the crap out of him with the head when we did the shot. You know. He's like screaming like a madman, you know, like he's supposed to. And then we got some really good stuff, you know.
Tomorrow night's the full moon. You're gonna change. You'll become...
I know. A monster.
The transformation was the big thing in that movie. You know, it starts out with, you know, David strips off his clothes and he, you know, says, I'm burning up or whatever, and he holds up his hand, and we made these things called change-o parts. And then you cut to the reverse angle, and then that's the change-o hand, and it stretches up, you know, and we cut to his point of view, and it's another hand that we sculpted in slightly more wolf-like form and still continued to stretch it. But for the hair growing thing, I thought we could do a reverse thing. I could punch hair into a head and pull the hairs through and reverse print it so the hairs look like they're growing. But then I thought, I was thinking I had to make this fake head to punch the hair through, and I thought, since it's a fake head anyways, we could kind of distort it from the inside with a mechanism and started to make it look like a wolf. When that transformation happened, people just flipped out. They were standing up and cheering and stuff. It was cool.
Okay, time to clean house. You need a proper resting place. Oof, that'll do for the time being. This house would be spotless if only I could find Mr. Crazy.
When we come back, Rob Zombie mixes murder, music, and movies.
They put in the music and everyone's like, oh, this movie's genius.
And later, the worst deaths ever put on film. But first, from the films on our list, which of these killers has the highest body count? Hannibal Lecter, Freddy Krueger, Jaws, or Carrie? The answer when we return to 20, Entertainment Weekly's Scariest Movies, here on AMC. From the films on our list, which of these killers has the highest body count? Hannibal and Freddy come up short with a measly 4 kills each. Jaws, not much better, only 5. But Carrie, how many kids went to your senior prom? Carrie shot to the top of our list when she decided to make the theme of her prom death.
What is this, a funeral? I prefer my music a little more heroic. From Hitchcock to Halloween, music has played a key role in scaring people. Oh, no, not again.
I mean, the music is the most important thing because there's so many stories about, and I'm sure people that know the story better than me will tell you about screening Halloween before the music's in, and everyone's like, oh, this movie's terrible. Just a house or a staircase with no music, and you're like, big deal, it's a house, it's a staircase. But then you put in the music, and now it's a scary house and a scary staircase. But I mean, I think usually the guys who are the most skillful at scoring pictures, whether it's John Williams or Jerry Goldsmith or whoever, John Carpenter, it seems like whatever the music is, it somehow sounds like the picture. So it's always the anticipation of everything that's scary. Jaws, the shark didn't work half the time, so they would just show the water, which would just be a shot of water. But then you put in John Williams' score, and now it's like, the anticipation of the shark coming through the water. Jaws ruined swimming forever for me. Chainsaw Massacre is a great movie because it just feels so real. It's just so relentless. It's so humorless. There's no music in that movie. So it works the exact opposite. The dryness of it is just like sounds of generators and weird pig squealing and different things mixed into the soundtrack. I mean, music, it's tricky. That's why we keep talking about the same things. Like, we're still talking about the music in Psycho. You can't hear the Psycho score without picturing, a hand pumping a knife in a shower. It's just so perfect. You'll never hear that again without thinking of that movie. I mean, music's everything.
Whether you're building a birdhouse or burying a severed head in your front yard, you need the right tool for the job. It just requires a little research. Interesting. Now that's what I'm talking about. I think I found it. This ought to do the trick. Huh. This looks familiar.
Entertainment Weekly's hit list. Weapons of choice. Chainsaws. The extra terror more than makes up for the extra mess. Axes. The only thing Wilford Brimley and Jack Nicholson will ever have in common. Guns. Because there's no waiting period for death. Claws. For killers who don't have a problem getting their hands dirty. Supernatural powers. For killers who do have a problem getting their hands dirty. Cars. The only crime here is against Mother Nature. That's not a hybrid vehicle. Knives. Next to sporks, the most effective way to kill the spawn of Satan. And the ultimate weapon of choice, Wilford Brimley.
I'll kill you!
An unstoppable killing machine. Almost.
I guess the lesson here is always be careful. That's why I've learned you can never bury anything too deep. It'll come back to get you. Believe me, it's happened. Rest in peace. Ah, that's a good one. I'll believe it when I see it.
Next, the man who made 666 a household number. Uber director Richard Donner, and more. But first, can you answer this question? The spawn of which of these Hollywood legends made their own mark in The Omen? Marlon Brando, Francis Ford Coppola, Jack Palance, or Henry Fonda? The answer when we return to 20, Entertainment Weekly's Scariest Movies, right here on AMC. The spawn of which of these Hollywood legends made their own mark in The Omen? The answer is Jack Palance. His daughter Holly played Damian's ill-fated nanny in the 1976 classic.
Few things are more chilling than seeing through the eyes of a killer. Except maybe standing in a grave. Ooh, that looks good. But this cold one should warm me up.
Seeing through the eyes of a killer is an added thrill that only scary movies can provide. Sam Raimi has given us this disturbing perspective for years, but never more famously than in Evil Dead. Evil is all around, but it's never seen until it's too late. John Carpenter used the first 5 minutes of Halloween to let us see what Michael sees as he stalks his sister. And instead of showing us his werewolf, John Landis decided to show us what the beast was hunting. Steven Spielberg did the same thing with terrifying effect in Jaws. And of course, because it's a scary movie, you know what happens next.
Jaws. It's just brilliantly filmed, brilliantly directed. I mean, I turned my swimming pool into a cat box. I mean, I just filled it with sand. I mean, there's classic horror.
The Omen, it still holds up remarkably well. What is it that works in horror films and what doesn't work? I mean, are there sort of guidelines?
Everybody's got their own guideline. I mean, I could never have gotten Gregory Peck or Lee Remick if they thought it was a horror film. I presented it to them as a mystery suspense thriller. In that thriller, everything was real. They had both been driven insane. There was nothing that was supernatural. Every one of those things could have happened.
There were some problems with the monkeys. And, you had all sorts of animal problems.
There was the baboons attacking Lee Remick's car with a kid in it. Everybody in the crew understood where they're to be, what to do. Not one baboon understood it. It ended up that the lead baboon had been in a terrible fight, and the vet was coming by coincidence to take the stitches out, and he said to me, if you're smart, you put them in the back of the car behind Lee Remick, and they see you're driving out with their leader, they're going to go crazy. And as we're driving out, we start to drive through, and I said, don't worry, Lee, but he's alive. I said, no, don't worry. And he starts to come to, and the baboons come, and they see him, and they start to attack the car, but the one inside comes to, and he grabs Lee Remick's hair from behind. And her fear and that panic in that scene, that screaming, that I had to push in past it, is real.
There's a story about how you cast Damian.
Oh, Harvey Stevens. We were in London, and we went to this one particular school, and there was this kid. He was kind of blonde hairish. He didn't have the black head. And I just said to Harvey, I said, what would you do if you really got angry and you had a trouble? And he just one-handed me, and he hit me in the nuts and wouldn't let go and screaming and raining. Cut, hold it. And he wouldn't understand what that meant. Cut, hold it. They pulled him off me. And the one good thing about it was that when we went to dietary, we actually found these 6s on his head. And so it worked.
Out perfect.
Yeah, it worked out perfect.
That wasn't in the script.
No.
One of the lessons of The Omen is to be scared of children. I mean, when you put a sort of demonic spin on a child, it's so much more scary than when you put it into an adult.
Yeah, I mean, because there's a naivete, there's a cleanliness, there's untouched, untainted, and when that turns, you have no control over it.
Creepy kids.
We're gonna get you before we love blood and gore. 5, 6, we play evil tricks. 7, 8, we're wicked playmates.
The worst ways to die. Sloth. You got what you deserved.
Emergency on that ambulance!
I stutter, give me the $50 and get out!
Otis, plug it in.
Okay, so that settles it. You'll get some therapy, and I'll never host another special. Well, thanks for joining us here on 20, Entertainment Weekly's Scariest Movies. I'm Bruce Campbell. Good night. Little piece of advice. Next time you bury someone alive, pack it down. That's rule number 1. That's like grave digging 101. You got me? Just nod if you agree. Oh, for crying out loud. Hey, take a bath once in a while. Yeah, you're hot. Do you realize that you shake your head no the entire time you do these takes? I'm doing my stuff and I see you going,
I'm sorry. I don't know I'm doing
it's like the entire time I feel like it sucks.
So you can be committed to them. They just care about, one of those, you know, what's going to be? How do you...
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll try to shut up.
Yeah, maybe let him.
Unbelievable. You're always interrupting me.
I'm sorry.
You're always interrupting me.
Paper cuts.